Finn moved through the twilight-lit corridors of Forrester Creations with Bridget in tow, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the hush before dawn. Their clandestine mission was simple in theory and perilous in execution. Obtain a sample of the tumor tissue that Grace Buckingham had paraded before the press, an alleged brain lesion that she claimed proved medical marvels and demanded secrecy. If the precious specimen were falsified, if it were anything but cerebral tissue, they could expose her deception once and for all. They reached the locked storage cabinet in the modest lab annex beneath the clinic extension, key in hand, heartbeats racing. Finn's gloved fingers trembled as he lifted the sterile vial from its padded slot. The label bore Grace's neat script, Specimen A, Patient Lazarus Brain Tumor. He handed it to Bridget, who slipped it into her satchel beneath layers of bunched coats and scarves. They retreated through the maze of hallways, adrenaline masking every sound except the soft echo of their breathing. That night, in the makeshift analysis lab at Spencer Publications, Finn and Bridget watched monitors flicker as the high-powered microscope revealed truth in cellular detail. Neurons and glial patterns that defined brain tissue were absent. Instead, the specimen's structure rippled with the uniform lobules and sinusoidal channels characteristic of hepatic tissue. Bridget's whisper trembled. "This is liver." Finn's chest tightened. The revelation was explosive. Grace's miraculous cure was built not on neural regeneration, but on unapproved liver-regenerating compounds, and she had disguised her guinea pig's liver as a brain to mislead regulators and patients alike. Their plan crystallized in that moment. They would seed a carefully worded rumor through trusted medical journalists and sympathetic insiders at the FDA that the latest tissue analysis suggests the subject of Grace Buckingham's Lazarus Project is still very much alive, hinting that the corpse from the staged explosion was not Grace's at all and that her phantom death was a ruse. By morning, the whisper had taken on a life of its own. Headlines blinked into existence on tablets and news sites. Grace Buckingham alive? New analysis suggests she may have faked her own death. Lazarus patient's tissue sample challenges official story. Suspicion grows around fatal highway explosion. Bill Spencer, reading the feeds from his office across town, felt a thrill of victory mixed with bitter indignation. He knew this bait would draw Grace out. The network of private eyes, informants, and deep-cover operatives at his disposal would rig a trap. Cameras, hidden microphones, uniformed officers hiding beyond doors, security teams concealed behind pillars at the nondescript warehouse on Magnolia Avenue where they believed Grace had laid low. Across town, Grace Buckingham awoke in the safe room that had sheltered her through Sheila's betrayal and Deacon's near-death. Hunched beneath a single lamp, her reflection in the darkened window seemed gaunt and tired, the lines around her eyes deeper than she'd ever remembered. She checked her burner phone, 15 missed calls, dozens of texts from unknown numbers, news alerts pinging ceaselessly. She read the sensational headlines and felt blood rush to her cheeks, heart hammering in her ears. Her entire world teetered on the brink of collapse. If they believed she was alive, all the careful layers of her escape would unravel. Bill Spencer's hunters would close in, the police would reopen the case, and Paris, her daughter, would think her a monster playing cruel games. Grace knew only one course of action. She had to eliminate the evidence. The tissue sample, the analysis results, every trace of her deception had to disappear. She summoned her remaining contacts in the black market of biotech espionage. A courier arrived before sunset with a nondescript envelope containing blueprints of the Magnolia warehouse, notes on guard rotations, and audio clips of security chatter intercepted during the night. Grace studied them rapidly, mind racing. She formulated a plan. Arrive under the cover of darkness, retrieve or destroy the sample under duress, ambush Bill's men, send a message of ruthlessness, and vanish again into the night. She packed her satchel with forceps, sample tubes, a portable kerosene burner, and her own vial of the compound, the genuine serum she'd clandestinely held in reserve. The one that could indeed regenerate hepatic tissue if properly administered to Deacon, though at the cost of her anonymity. As the sun dipped below the city's skyline, Grace slipped through shadows to the warehouse on Magnolia. The building loomed like a rusting sentinel, its corrugated steel panels streaked with graffiti and age. She bypassed the side gate with a stolen keycard, crept past the exterior cameras using mirrored shield paint she'd procured from a black market contact, and entered through a side door left unlocked for service crews. Inside, the cavernous room was hushed, shelves of cardboard boxes and metal drums casting long shapes under the faint glow of emergency lights. She followed the blueprint's directions to the back office where the private evidence locker had been set up by Bill's people. Meanwhile, concealed behind a stack of crates near the front entrance, Bill's undercover squad waited in silence, weapons holstered but ready. Cameras perched overhead, live feeds directed to monitors in a command van parked across the street. Uniformed officers, mere props to provide legal cover, stood beyond the threshold, their presence giving the impression that Bill had enlisted official support. The plan hinged on video and audio capture. Grace would storm in, destroy the sample, and they would apprehend her in the act, exposing her for the fraud and fugitive she was. Grace located the locker. A reinforced steel cage fitted with a biometric lock. She had obtained a fingerprint mold of Bridget's forge. Slipping her finger into the reader, the mechanism clicked open. Inside lay a single evidence bag labeled Sample A, Subject Lazarus, and a digital recorder. Grace paused, her pulse racing. She retrieved the bag containing the liver tissue and set it on the table. Then she produced the small kerosene burner, clicking it on and adjusting the flame. She was about to incinerate the evidence when a muffled cough echoed from the shadows. Grace Buckingham, a voice called out softly but firmly from the direction of the crates. Grace froze, head darting toward the sound. Rifle barrels swiveled into view as Bill's squad emerged, weapons trained, eyes cold behind night vision goggles. At the same moment, uniformed officers stepped forward from the front door. Framed by the low-hung light, Bill Spencer himself strode into view, his obsidian gaze fixed on Grace. She stood before the desk, the burner casting dancing flames across her face. So the great doctor faked her death, destroyed the evidence, and nearly burned my future to ashes, Bill said, voice flat as granite. He raised a hand, and an officer approached, holding the recorder. Drop it. Grace's jaw clenched. She set down the burner, flames sputtering as she extinguished them, then reached for her satchel. You have no proof, she said, voice steady though fury burned in her eyes. This sample is mine to destroy. You have no warrants, no jurisdiction here. Bill's lips curved in a cold smile. Your sample is exactly what I wanted, he replied. He turned to the officer, who clicked open the recorder and set it on the table. We have every word you said, every move you made. You're on tape admitting to destruction of evidence, obstruction of justice, fraud. FBI's already on standby at the precinct. He looked back at Grace, who stood trembling, aware that her meticulously crafted illusion was disintegrating. Grace's chest heaved. In a final gambit, she pressed a hand to her stomach, and the movement threw her off balance. Her face blanched in shock at the sudden pain that lanced through her abdomen. She moaned and staggered backward, clutching her side, eyes wide in disbelief. Bill's expression shifted from triumph to confusion. Grace sank to her knees, fingers pressed beneath her blouse. Finn and Bridget, who had trailed her unseen, poured into the room, their faces etched with horror. She's pregnant, Finn whispered, rushing to her side. Oh my God. Bridget knelt beside Grace, gently pulling up her shirt to reveal a subtle curve to her midsection, unmistakable evidence of new life. Security cameras spun to capture every angle as Bill stood frozen, the magnitude of this revelation dawning on him. The family saga had just taken another twist. Grace Buckingham, fugitive and fraudster, was carrying a child. Grace's eyes filled with tears, raw fear and vulnerability shining through her usual mask of control. She pressed her hand over the burgeoning swell of her belly, as if to shield her secret from the cold eyes around her. Bill's jaw clenched as he absorbed the implications. A child, innocent and yet tethered to Grace's crimes, would become leverage, would draw Paris, Liam, and the entire Spencer Buckingham clan into a sphere of influence once more. The microphones captured Grace's trembling voice. "I didn't know until now." She collapsed, unconscious, and Finn caught her as Bridget called for medical assistance. Bill stepped forward, gaze hard as steel. "Get her to a hospital," he ordered the nearest officer. "And make sure she's under constant guard." He turned away from the scene, eyes blazing with renewed determination. The scandal had heightened beyond anything he had imagined. Grace Buckingham's pregnancy was a weapon he would wield her child a pawn in the game of power, revenge, and redemption that had only just begun. And as paramedics loaded Grace onto a stretcher and carried her away, the warehouse fell silent save for the distant wail of sirens, hinting that in this relentless war of secrets and lies, the next chapter would be the most dangerous yet. One marked by a life growing in secret, a family shattered, and an empire ready to crush any threat to its legacy. As the ambulance doors slammed shut, sealing Grace Buckingham in a cocoon of flashing red lights and the scent of antiseptic, the warehouse on Magnolia Avenue settled into an uneasy hush. Bill Spencer stood beneath the harsh glow of the emergency lights, staring at the receding gurney. His mind raced. A pregnant fugitive, wounded and half-conscious, now in his legal custody. This was opportunity molded from chaos. He turned to his assembled team. Investigators, corporate counsel, and a single uniformed officer who'd stayed back. "Secure every dossier on her," he said, voice low and exacting. "I want her full medical history, her financials, Paris's name, everything. If we're going to leverage that child, we need every legal edge." Meanwhile, at Los Angeles County General, a flurry of activity greeted Grace's arrival. Finn rushed alongside the nurse pushing the stretcher, clutching Bridget's trembling hand. The emergency room doors slid open, and the hall beyond was a cacophony of squeaking carts and shouted orders. A triage doctor met them, eyes flicking from Grace's pale face to the monitors showing her vital signs and the faint, steady curve of a fetal heartbeat. "Internal bleeding? Blood loss? You need imaging now," the doctor barked, gesturing at an MRI schedule pinned to the wall. Finn barked back, "We need to stabilize her first, give fluids, cross-match for possible transfusion. She's hypotensive and in shock." As machines hummed to life and lines were inserted into Grace's arm, Bridget hovered, tears slipping down her cheeks. Finn held her shoulder gently. "She'll be all right," he murmured, though his own heart pounded with fear for the woman he once loved, fear for the mysterious child she carried, fear of the reckoning that loomed once Bill Spencer claimed his spoils. Upstairs, in the visitors' waiting room, Bridget paced the linoleum floor as Paris Buckingham and Liam Spencer arrived together, Paris in black silk, eyes red from crying, Liam's arms steady around her waist though his jaw was set like granite. They had been alerted by Bill's team that Grace was alive, unconscious, and pregnant. Paris's face twisted in confusion and anger. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded of Finn, who had met them outside the room. Liam's eyes flicked to Bridget, accusing. "You lied to us about the sample, about her death, and now this?" Finn raised his hands in frustration. "I was protecting Deacon's life, Paris. I had no idea she was pregnant. None of us did." Paris's gaze softened, but only slightly. "She used me as a shield once. I won't let her use me again." Liam nodded. "But if she's carrying a child, this changes everything." Inside Grace's room, the rhythmic beeps of monitors provided a morbid lullaby. Grace lay supine, her head swathed in a loose dressing from the bump in her temple where she'd struck when she collapsed. An intravenous drip infused crystalloid solution, and the nurse adjusted the dosage of progesterone that Finn had insisted on to support the early pregnancy. The overhead lamp cast a sterile circle of light across Grace's face, smoothing the worry lines as she drifted on the edge between sleep and consciousness. Finn hovered near the foot of the bed, scanning labs on a clipboard, while Bridget sat close by, one hand resting tentatively on Grace's swollen abdomen. Outside the room, the door cracked open and Paris slipped in too. She paused at the threshold, staring at her mother's still form. The tangled emotions in her chest, betrayal, fear, love, pity, warred for dominance. Liam hovered behind her, silent solidarity in his eyes. Finn cleared his throat and stepped aside, allowing Paris to approach. Bridget rose, smoothing her skirt, and offered Paris a seat. The room felt impossibly small, charged with all the secrets that had drawn them back into each other's orbits. Paris drew a shaky breath and took Grace's hand in hers. Grace's fingers twitched. "Mom," Paris whispered, voice cracking, "It's me, Paris." Grace's lids fluttered. Her eyes blinked open to reveal confusion and pain. For a moment, she saw only the white ceiling, the monitor flashing in her peripheral vision. Then recognition sparked. Her eyes traveled down to the hand at her side, then to the two women standing before her, the daughter she had once tried to protect and the doctor she had once deceived. Grace attempted to speak, but found her throat dry. Finn handed her a cup of water and she sipped, wincing at the stiffness in her jaw. "Where?" Grace rasped. What happened?" Paris swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "You're in the hospital. You collapsed, Bill's men caught you." Grace's brow furrowed. She tried to sit up and pain lanced through her abdomen. She gasped. "The baby," she croaked. "Is it?" Finn stepped in, placing a supportive hand behind her back. "You're pregnant," he said gently. "We saw it when you collapsed. We're monitoring you and the fetus. You lost blood, but we're stabilizing you now." Grace's face paled. She closed her eyes, pressing a gloved hand to her stomach as though to confirm the life hidden within. "I didn't know," she whispered, tears welling. I never expected." Paris let out a sob. "Mom, you've done so many terrible things, but this child, it doesn't deserve to be collateral damage." Grace's gaze turned to Bridget. "I'm sorry," she whispered, full of regret. "I never meant to. I was so desperate." Bridget's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Desperation doesn't excuse what you did to Deacon," she said softly, glancing toward Finn, who nodded grimly. "He's alive, but his condition is critical. Your fake serum nearly killed him." Grace's tears began to flow freely down her cheeks as guilt and fear warred for release. "I thought, if I could save one life, maybe the rest would forgive me." Paris's jaw clenched. "Forgiveness isn't your choice alone," she said quietly. "Your choices have consequences." Down in the administration wing, Bill Spencer received the call from the hospital's security detail that Grace was stabilized and under guard. And now fathers and mothers of the city clamored to know, who was the father? Bill's legal team pounced on the question as eagerly as a pack of wolves. The moment Paris or Liam or Finn spoke the father's name, whether it was Finn himself, or a hastily arranged rendezvous with a safe-house pilot, or perhaps the darkest insinuation that Bill Spencer himself had been ensnared into a hidden liaison, that name would shape custodial rights and power plays. Bill leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. "Don't draw blood until we need to," he ordered. "Let them talk. Let the scandal bleed out. We'll control the narrative." As dusk fell outside the hospital, three intertwined fates spun ever tighter. Grace Buckingham, vulnerable with child, haunted by her crimes and bound to the man who might be the father. Finn and Bridget, torn between their duty to life and their loyalty to the woman who once loved them both. And Paris and Liam, standing guard over the last remnant of their shattered family, determined to shield the innocent even as they reckoned with the fallout of Grace's deception. In the corridors, whispers followed Paris and Liam as they emerged from Grace's room. Her mother is pregnant. No one knows who the father is. Nurses exchanged knowing glances. Reporters outside the entrance snapped photos through the glass doors. And somewhere in the bowels of Spencer Publications, Bill Spencer smiled at the chaos unfolding, certain that in the end, every secret, every betrayal, and every unborn life would be bent to his design. But as the night deepened, a quiet resolve settled over the hospital room where Grace lay recovering. Paris drew a blanket around her mother's shoulders and whispered, "I will protect this child, no matter what." Grace reached up, fingers brushing her daughter's cheek. "Thank you," she murmured, voice frail with hope and fear. And though the path ahead promised more battles, legal, moral, and personal, one undeniable truth glowed between them. In the crucible of lies and vengeance, a new life had begun, and love, however flawed, still dared to take root.